Humble Boy finds a luxury car abandoned in the forest and is shocked by what he finds. Caleb Miller was walking through the forest that Tuesday afternoon, carrying in his arms some dry branches he had collected to help his mother make lunch. The 14-year-old boy always made this trip after school, looking for firewood and sometimes some wild berries that could supplement his family's meager meal. That's when he spotted something that made him stop immediately. Among the trees, half hidden by branches and leaves, was a shiny black car, the kind he only saw driving down the main street of the small town on weekends. Caleb dropped the firewood on the ground and approached slowly, his heart beating faster. The vehicle seemed abandoned there, with its wheels half sunk in the damp earth and dry leaves piled on the hood. The boy looked around, searching for signs that someone might be nearby. The forest was silent. Only the sound of birds and the wind in the leaves broke the afternoon's quiet. Caleb moved closer to the car and noticed that the driver's door was slightly ajar. His first thought was worry. What if someone was hurt and needed help? "Is anyone there?" he shouted. But there was no answer. He walked around the vehicle, observing every detail. He had never seen such a beautiful car up close. The metal shone, even covered in dust and leaves. The wheels were huge and gleaming. Caleb knew that thing must cost more money than his family would see in an entire lifetime. When he reached the back of the car, he noticed the trunk was slightly open. An irresistible curiosity took hold of him. What if there was someone injured inside? What if it was something dangerous? But what if it was someone needing help? With trembling hands, Caleb opened the trunk completely and froze. Inside were 3 large suitcases, and one of them was slightly open, revealing more money than he had ever seen in his life. $100 bills organized in stacks, along with some documents and papers. The boy felt his legs go weak. He looked around again, as if expecting someone to jump out from behind the trees, but he remained alone in that makeshift clearing. Caleb hesitantly reached his hand toward the money but stopped halfway. His mother had always taught him that taking what wasn't his was wrong, even if they needed it so badly, and how they needed it. Mrs. Sarah had lost her job at the canning factory 3 months ago, and since then they had been surviving on the little change Caleb could earn by doing small jobs for the neighbors. The refrigerator had been empty for 2 days, and the rent for the small house they lived in was overdue. Caleb closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, he picked up one of the documents that was with the money. It was a driver's license in the name of James Harrison. The address showed the man lived in the upscale neighborhood of the city, in that area where Caleb sometimes went to sell homemade sweets his mother made. The boy picked up other papers. There were company documents, contracts, and what looked like bank statements, all in the name of the same man, James Harrison. Caleb put the papers back in the suitcase and closed the trunk, but he couldn't leave. He stood still, looking at the car, thinking about what he should do. He could simply pretend he hadn't seen anything and walk away, or he could take a small amount that the owner probably wouldn't even notice. But he could also try to find this James and return everything. The third option seemed the most difficult, but it was the one his conscience said was right. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. After much hesitation, Caleb decided he would try to find the car's owner. He memorized the address he had seen in the documents and ran out of the forest toward the town. His mother would be worried about his delay, but he needed to resolve this before it got dark. The walk to James's house took almost an hour. Caleb had never been to that part of the small town, where the houses were huge and surrounded by high walls. When he finally reached the address, he stopped in front of an imposing gate and rang the bell. A middle-aged woman, probably the maid, came to answer. She looked Caleb up and down with contempt, noticing his simple clothes and worn-out shoes. "What do you want here, boy? If you're here to beg, you can leave." "Doctor, James is not receiving beggars today." "I didn't come to ask for anything, ma'am," Caleb replied politely. "I need to speak with Dr. James about his car." "What car? What is this about?" "The black car that's in the forest. I found his documents and came to return them." The woman narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "Wait here, don't move from this spot." She went back inside the house, leaving Caleb standing at the gate. A few minutes later, a tall, elegant man appeared. He must have been about 45, with neatly combed greying hair and expensive clothes. But Caleb immediately sensed something was wrong. The man seemed tense, worried, and there were dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. "You said you found my car?" James asked in a serious tone. "Yes, sir. It was in the forest, near the trail where I always go to gather firewood. The trunk was open, and you saw what was inside?" James interrupted, his voice laden with anxiety. Caleb nodded. "I saw the suitcases with money and the documents with your name. I came to return them because my mother always taught me that taking what isn't ours is wrong." James was silent for a few seconds, studying the boy's face. Then he opened the gate. "Come in. We need to talk." Caleb followed the man into a huge room with furniture that seemed to cost more than his entire house. James offered him a glass of water and sat in the opposite armchair, running his hands through his hair nervously. "Son, what you saw there, it's complicated," James began. "That money isn't exactly mine." Caleb felt a chill in his stomach. "What do you mean, sir?" "It's company money. I'm a partner in a construction firm with my brother Robert. We had a very serious argument yesterday, and I did some things I'm not proud of." James stood up and began pacing back and forth across the room. "My brother discovered I was transferring company money to my personal account. It's not theft, you understand. It's my money too, it's just that I was doing it without telling him. When Robert confronted me, I took what was left in the safe and left home furious. I didn't want him to take all the money and leave me with nothing." Caleb listened in silence, trying to understand the situation. "But why did you hide the car in the forest?" "Because after I left home, I realized I had overreacted. My brother was right to be angry. I should have talked to him before touching the company money, but now I'm afraid to go back home and face the situation. So I hid the car in the forest and have been trying for 2 days to decide what to do." At that moment, a woman entered the room. She was elegant and beautiful, but her eyes were red as if she had been crying a lot. "James, are you there? I need to talk to you about—" She stopped upon seeing Caleb. "Who is this boy?" "Cynthia, this is—" "What's your name again?" "Caleb, sir. Caleb Miller." "This is Caleb. He found our car in the forest." Cynthia looked at her husband with an expression of surprise and relief. "You found the car? Thank God. I was desperate, thinking someone had done something to you. You haven't slept at home for 2 days. "Cynthia," the boy saw the suitcases. The expression of relief on the woman's face turned to panic. "What do you mean? Did he see the money?" "Yes, ma'am," Caleb answered. "But I didn't take anything. I came here to return it." Cynthia sank into an armchair, bringing her hands to her face. "James, you have no idea what's happening at the firm. Robert is furious. He threatened to call the lawyers, said he'll accuse you of embezzlement if you don't return the money by tomorrow." "But I'm a partner. It's my money too." "Not the way you took it, James. You know that. And there's more. Our daughter called from the hospital. The doctors said the treatment will cost twice what we thought. Madison is desperate, thinking we won't be able to pay." Caleb watched the argument without fully understanding, but realizing that this rich family also had serious problems. James threw himself on the sofa, covering his face with his hands. "I just wanted to make sure we'd have money for Madison's treatment. When I saw our company's reserve fund shrinking with the medical expenses, I panicked. I thought Robert would want to cut her treatment costs." "And you didn't talk to him about this?" Cynthia asked, exasperated. "I tried, but you know how my brother is. He only thinks about numbers, about profits. I couldn't guarantee he'd prioritize Madison's health over business." Caleb, who had been quiet until then, dared to ask, "What does your daughter have, Mr. James?" Cynthia looked at the boy with surprise, as if she'd forgotten he was there. "She has a rare blood disease. She needs a very expensive treatment that can only be done at a private clinic. The health insurance doesn't cover this type of procedure. And how much does it cost?" $200,000, James answered with a broken voice. "It's everything we have in the company's reserves. I took half that amount, afraid my brother wouldn't want to spend it all." Caleb was impressed by that amount. It was more money than his family would see in several lifetimes, but at the same time he realized those people were suffering as much as he and his mother, just for different reasons. "Mr. James, have you tried to really talk to your brother? Explain that it's to save your daughter." "It's more complicated than that, son. Robert and I haven't gotten along for years. He always thought I don't dedicate myself enough to the business, that I'm irresponsible with money. When I started spending so much on Madison's treatment, he became even more suspicious." Cynthia approached her husband and held his hand. "James, you need to go back there and talk to him. Explain the situation. Robert can be difficult, but he's not bad. He loves Madison too. And if he refuses to pay for the rest of the treatment, then we'll find another way. But running away and hiding the money won't solve anything. It will only make things worse." Caleb watched the scene and remembered the times his mother was desperate, not knowing how to pay the bills. He always tried to comfort her, saying they'd find a solution together. Maybe he could give the same advice to this family. "Can I say something?" he asked timidly. James and Cynthia looked at him. "At my house, when we have problems, my mother always says talking solves everything. Even when it seems like it won't work, she insists we try. Maybe you should try again with your brother." James smiled sadly. "You're very wise for just... How old are you?" 14, sir. 14 years old, and more sensible than I am. You're right, of course. I need to face the situation like a man." Cynthia stood up. "Then let's go. I'll go with you to talk to Robert, and Caleb is coming with us to show where the car is." "No need, ma'am. I can explain where it is." "No, dear. You've helped us so much that we want to thank you in person, and then I'll have my driver take you home. It's almost dark already." The three left the house and headed to the construction firm's office, which was downtown. On the way, James shared more details about the problems at the company and his daughter's illness. Caleb was impressed to discover how the lives of wealthy people could also be complicated. When they arrived at the office, they found Robert working alone, even though it was past the time when all the employees had already left. He was a man who resembled James, but a bit older and with a more serious expression. "James, I'm glad you showed up," Robert said upon seeing his brother. "We need to resolve this situation quickly. The employees are asking about next week's payments." "Robert, I came to return the money and apologize," James replied. "You were right. I should have talked to you before taking the money." "Where is the money?" "In a car in the forest. This boy here, Caleb, found it and came to tell me. He could have taken it all and no one would have known, but he chose to do the right thing." Robert looked at Caleb with interest. "Really? You found the money and didn't take any of it?" "No, sir, it's not mine." "Impressive. It's rare to find such honest people these days." James took a deep breath. "Robert, I need to explain why I took the money. It wasn't out of greed or irresponsibility. It was out of desperation." "Desperation? I'm afraid we won't have enough money for Madison's full treatment. The doctors said it could cost even more than expected. I panicked, thinking you would want to cut corners on her treatment." Robert was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "James, did you really think I would leave my niece without treatment to save money?" I don't know. You always complain about the medical expenses, saying it's compromising our cash flow. Of course it's compromising. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let Madison suffer. She's family, James. She's more important than any business." Cynthia approached her two brothers-in-law. "You're both being foolish, James. You should have talked to Robert from the start. And Robert, you could be clearer about your intentions. You're arguing over nothing while Madison needs you united." Caleb watched the family discussion and remembered the few times he had seen similar arguments among neighbors. He always thought people complicated situations that could be resolved with an honest conversation. "Can I ask a question?" Caleb interjected. The three adults looked at him. "Have you explained to your daughter what's happening with the business?" "What do you mean?" James asked. "Does she know you're worried about the money for the treatment? Because if I were her, I'd want to know. Maybe she has some idea to help." Cynthia and James exchanged glances. "We don't want to worry Madison," Cynthia answered. "She's already suffering from the illness. Why add more stress? But if she doesn't know what's happening, she can't help. At my house, my mother always tells me when we're going through hard times. Then I can think of ways to help, even as a kid. Robert smiled. This boy is right. Madison is an intelligent young woman. Maybe we should include her more in family decisions. He's right, James agreed. We're treating her as if she were a helpless child, when in fact she's a 22-year-old woman. Then let's go get the money from the forest and then go visit Madison at the hospital, Cynthia suggested. We'll tell her everything and decide together how to proceed. The four left the office and went into the forest. Caleb guided the way to where the car was hidden. James opened the trunk and checked that everything was intact. The 3 suitcases were still there, exactly as Caleb had found them. Unbelievable, Robert murmured. He really didn't touch anything. I said I wouldn't touch it, Caleb replied simply. But did you see how much money is in there? It must be more than your family makes in years. I know, sir, but it's not mine. James put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Caleb, you did something today that few adults would have the courage to do. Thank you. No need to thank me, Mr. James. I just did what was right. Robert picked up one of the suitcases and opened it. James, exactly how much money did you take? $100,000, half of what we had set aside for the treatment. It's all here. Not a single bill is missing. They loaded the suitcases into Robert's car and left the forest. On the way to the hospital, Cynthia asked Caleb about his family. Do you live only with your mother? Yes, ma'am. My father left us when I was 8. Since then, it's been just her and me. And how do you get by? My mother worked at a factory, but she lost her job 3 months ago. Now I do odd jobs for the neighbors, sell sweets she makes, things like that. It must be difficult. Yeah, but we manage. My mother always says that as long as we have our health and each other, we can get through anything. James looked at Caleb in the rearview mirror. Your mother sounds like a very wise woman. She's the smartest person I know. Even without much schooling, she always knows what to do in tough situations. When they arrived at the hospital, they found Madison in the room reading a book. She was a pretty young woman, but visibly weakened by the illness. Her hair was thinning because of the treatment, and she was very thin. Dad, what a surprise, she said upon seeing James. I thought you weren't coming today. How could I not come see my daughter? James approached and kissed her forehead. How are you feeling? Better. The doctors said the new medicine is working, but who is this boy? This is Caleb, Cynthia answered. He helped us with a very serious problem today. What kind of problem? James and Robert exchanged glances. It was time to tell Madison the truth. Honey, we need to talk to you about some things, James began. About the treatment, about the costs, about the problems this is causing for the business. Madison closed her book and paid attention. I already suspected something was wrong. You've both been acting strange for weeks, whispering when I got close, changing the subject when I asked about the business. I'm sorry, honey. We thought it was better not to worry you. Dad, I'm 22. I can handle the truth. James told her everything. The costs of the treatment, the problems at the firm, the argument with Robert, his desperate decision to take the hidden money, and how Caleb had found the car and decided to return everything honestly. Madison listened to everything in silence. When James finished, she was thoughtful for a few moments. Dad, you did all this because of me? Of course, honey. You're more important than any business. But you almost ruined your relationship with Uncle Robert because of me. It wasn't because of you, Madison, Robert interjected. It was because your father and I are both too proud to talk properly. But Caleb here made us realize that. Madison looked at Caleb with curiosity. And you? How old are you? 14. And you found all that money and didn't take any of it? No, ma'am. Why? Caleb thought for a moment before answering. Because when you take what isn't yours, you might solve one problem, but you create others. And also because my mother always taught me that our conscience is worth more than any money. Madison smiled. Your mother must be a very special person. She is. Dad, I want to meet Caleb's mother, and I want to make a proposal. What proposal? How much have you spent on me so far? Madison, that doesn't matter. Yes, it does. How much? James sighed. About $80,000. And how much more will we need to spend? The doctors said it could be up to $120,000 more. $200,000 total, then. More or less. Madison turned to Caleb. Caleb, is your family struggling? We are, yes. But that's not your problem. Maybe it is. Dad, what do you think about offering a job to Caleb's mother? She could work at the firm or even here at home, helping with household tasks while I'm in the hospital. Madison, we don't need more employees right now, James replied. With the costs of your treatment, we're trying to save. Then make a different arrangement. Caleb saved us $200,000 by returning the money honestly. What if you paid for him to study at a private school and gave his mother a decent salary? Robert interjected. Madison, that would be an extra expense we can't. Uncle, think about it. If Caleb had kept the money, you would have lost $200,000. He saved us that amount. Spending a couple $1,000s a month on his family would be much less than the loss you avoided. Cynthia looked at her stepdaughter with admiration. Madison, you're right. And you know what? I've always wanted someone to help me with the household chores. I have so much to do with the business that I barely have time to take proper care of the house. James became thoughtful. Caleb, what do you think of the idea? I don't know, sir. I'd have to talk to my mother first, and she's very proud. She doesn't like accepting help that seems like charity. It wouldn't be charity, Madison insisted. It would be payment for a service. You provided us with a valuable service today, and your mother would provide a valuable service working for us. Can I think about it? Of course. In fact, what if we all went to meet your mother? That way you can discuss it as a family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. An hour later, the small group was at the door of the humble house where Caleb lived with his mother. It was a small and simple house, but very clean and tidy. Sarah Miller, a 38-year-old woman, was surprised to see her son arriving accompanied by clearly wealthy people. Caleb, what's going on? She asked, worried. Mum, these people want to talk to you. It's about something that happened today. Sarah invited everyone in, embarrassed by the simplicity of her home. But James and Cynthia sat down in the small living room as if it were the most natural place in the world. Mrs. Sarah, my name is James Harrison. This is my brother Robert, my wife Cynthia, and my daughter Madison. Nice to meet you. Can I offer some coffee? Please don't trouble yourself, Cynthia replied kindly. We came here to thank your son and make a proposal to you. Thank Caleb? Why? James told the whole story. How Caleb had found the car with the money, how he could have taken it all without anyone knowing, but chose to look for the owner to return it. Sarah listened with her eyes shining with pride. I always knew my son was special, she said when James finished, but I never imagined he would do something so important. That's why we want to offer you a job, Cynthia explained. I need someone to help me with household tasks, especially now that my stepdaughter is sick and I need to spend a lot of time caring for her. Sarah looked suspicious. What kind of work? Cleaning, organizing, maybe some meals. Nothing too heavy. The salary would be $2,500 a month. Sarah was stunned. It was more than she made at the factory. And there's more, James added. We'd like to pay for a private school for Caleb. He's a very smart boy and deserves better opportunities. I can't accept that, Sarah replied immediately. It seems like too much, like charity. Mum, Caleb interjected, they explained to me it's not charity. It's payment for a service. I saved their money, and now you're going to work for them. It's a fair exchange. But son, you didn't do that expecting payment. You did it because it was right. I know, Mom, but sometimes when you do the right thing, good things happen. Madison, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. Mrs. Sarah, can I tell you why it's so important to us that you accept our offer? You may, dear. I am sick. I need an expensive treatment that's causing financial problems for the family. My father and my uncle almost had a terrible fight over it. But your son did something that taught us an important lesson about honesty and family. We want to repay you, but we also want him to continue being part of our lives. He brought us luck. Sarah looked at her son, seeing the hope in his eyes. Caleb, what do you think? I think we should accept, Mom. These people are good, and it will be good for us to be able to buy food without worry, pay the bills on time. And I've always wanted to study at a better school. Sarah took a deep breath. All right. I accept the offer. But I want to make it clear that I will really work. I won't accept a salary I don't deserve." "I'm sure of that," Cynthia smiled. "From what I've seen of your son, you must be a very hard-working and honest woman. When can I start?" "How about tomorrow? I can send our driver to pick you up in the morning." "That's not necessary. I can take the bus." "Mrs. Sarah, please accept. For us it's no trouble at all, and for you it will be much more convenient." In the following days, Caleb and Sarah's life changed completely. Sarah started working at the Harrison house and quickly became indispensable. Besides taking care of cleaning and organizing, she revealed a special talent for cooking, preparing delicious meals that helped Madison regain her appetite during treatment. Caleb was enrolled in an excellent private school and proved to be even smarter than everyone imagined. His teachers were impressed by his dedication to his studies and his maturity in handling complex situations. But the biggest change was in the Harrison family. Caleb's honesty had served as a mirror, showing James and Robert how they were complicating situations that could be resolved with dialogue. The two brothers began to understand each other again, and the firm started to prosper once more. Madison responded well to the treatment and, 3 months after the meeting in the forest, was discharged from the hospital. Her first visit was to Caleb and Sarah's house, where she was welcomed as part of the family. "Caleb, you changed our life," she said, sitting in the small kitchen where it had all begun. "You changed ours too," he replied. "But you know what's the coolest thing about all this?" "What?" "That it all started because I decided to do the right thing. My mum always said doing the right thing is worth it, but I never imagined it would be worth this much." Madison laughed. "And I never imagined that a 14-year-old boy's honesty would save my family. I didn't save anything. I just returned what wasn't mine." "Caleb, you did much more than that. You showed my father and uncle that they were acting like children, made them realize that family is more important than pride, and made me realize that I was also part of the problems because I kept hiding my worries instead of talking openly." "People overcomplicate things," Caleb observed. "Sometimes the solution is simpler than it seems. You're right, and you know what else? Now you're part of our family too." Caleb smiled. For the first time in a long while, he felt the future held possibilities he didn't even know existed, and all because, in a moment of temptation, he chose to listen to his conscience instead of his needs. 6 months had passed since that day in the forest. Caleb was excelling at his new school and was already talking about getting a degree in business administration to help at Harrison & Harrison. Sarah had become much more than an employee. She was considered part of the family and participated in all important decisions. James and Robert's construction firm was growing again, and they attributed part of the success to the new harmony between the brothers, which had started with Caleb's lesson in honesty. Madison was fully recovered and had returned to work, bringing renewed energy to the family business, but the story was far from over. On a Thursday afternoon, Caleb received an unexpected phone call at school. "Caleb, it's Dr. James. I need you to come to the office immediately. Something very strange has happened." "What is it, Dr. James?" "You'd better see it with your own eyes, and bring your mother too." Caleb rushed out of school and went to pick up Sarah at the Harrison house. On the way to the office, he tried to imagine what could have happened. James seemed worried, but not exactly sad. It was as if it was a worry mixed with surprise. When they arrived at the office, they found James, Robert, and Madison gathered in the conference room with confused expressions. On the table were some documents and a small box. "Sit here, Caleb," James said. "What I'm about to tell you is very strange." "I'm listening." "This morning we were visited by a lawyer. He brought these documents and said he had been looking for you for months." "For me? Why?" "Because you inherited a house." Caleb looked at his mother, confused. "What do you mean I inherited a house? From whom?" "From a lady named Martha Vance. According to the lawyer, she was your grandmother." "But Dr. James, my grandmother died when I was 5, and her last name wasn't Vance." "She was your paternal grandmother, Caleb," Sarah said softly. "What?" "Martha was your father's mother. She tried to get in touch with us several times after he abandoned us, but I didn't allow it. I thought she would try to take you away from me, or speak ill of me to you." Caleb was in shock. "Mom, why did you never tell me about her?" "Because I was afraid, son. Afraid that she had money and influence and could take you away from me. We were so poor, I thought any judge would give her custody. But she tried to talk to me. Several times. She sent letters, birthday gifts, even money sometimes. But I sent everything back." James intervened. "According to the lawyer, Mrs. Martha never gave up on finding you. She hired a private investigator to find out where you lived, how you were doing, but she gave strict instructions not to interfere in your lives if they saw you were well cared for." "What do you mean?" "She just wanted to be sure you were safe and loved. Since she saw your mother was taking good care of you, she decided not to intrude. But she stipulated in her will that when you turned 18, or when you showed signs of exceptional maturity, you would inherit her property." Robert picked up the documents. "The lawyer said your grandmother followed your story through conversations with neighbors and people in the community. When she learned you had honestly returned a large sum of money, she decided you already demonstrated the necessary maturity." "What property is this?" "A beach house in a coastal town 2 hours from here. It's not a mansion, but it's a good house with a large backyard, and there's more. She left a reserve of $50,000 for maintenance costs and taxes." Caleb looked at his mother, seeing tears streaming down her face. "Mom, are you okay?" "I am, son. It's just, I did a terrible thing. I prevented you from meeting your grandmother out of pure selfishness. And even so, she kept looking after you from a distance. You did what you thought was best at the time, I understand." "No, Caleb, I was wrong. Martha was a good woman. In the letters she sent, she always said she respected my position as your mother and only wanted to make sure you were okay." James placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Mrs. Sarah, the past is the past. What matters is that your mother-in-law recognized what kind of mother you are and wanted to reward both you and Caleb." "How so?" Madison picked up another document. Mrs. Martha left specific instructions that, if Caleb wanted to accept the inheritance, his mother should receive an amount of $20,000 as recognition for raising her grandson alone and with so much love. Sarah broke down in tears. "She was a better person than I deserved." Caleb hugged his mother. "Mom, you did everything right. You protected our home, raised me with the right values." Mrs. Martha recognized that. That's why she left all this for us. "But son, now you have your own house. You can leave home, live your life." "Mom, I'm only 14, and even when I grow up, I'll never abandon you. We're a family." Robert smiled. "You know what I think you should do." "What?" "Go see this beach house. If you like it, you can spend weekends there, or even move there if you prefer, but do it together." "And my job?" Sarah asked. "Mrs. Sarah," Cynthia intervened, "you've become indispensable to our family. If you want to move to the beach, we can arrange a plan. You work here during the week and spend weekends at the new house, or vice versa." "And can I study there?" Caleb asked. "Of course," James replied. "We can pay for a private school there too, or you can study here during the week and spend weekends at the beach." Caleb looked at everyone around the table. In less than a year, his life had completely changed. From a poor boy who gathered firewood in the forest to help his mother, he had become part of a wealthy family, and on top of that, inherited a property. But the most important thing was that none of this had changed who he was inside. He was still the same honest boy who had returned the money without a second thought. "Can I ask a question?" he said. "Of course." "The grandmother I never met. Was she a good person?" The lawyer, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "Caleb, I met your grandmother 15 years ago. She was a client of my firm. I can assure you she was one of the kindest people I've ever known. She always helped needy families, donated to charities, but never wanted publicity. She did everything discreetly." "And did she know what I was like?" "She knew everything about you, that you were a good student, that you helped your mother, that you were respected in the community. But what impressed her the most was the story of how you returned the money. She said you had proven you had the right character to deserve what she wanted to leave." "How did she know about the money story?" James smiled. because I told her. How? Mrs. Martha was our summer neighbor. We have a beach house in the same town where the property you inherited is located. When I told her about the honest boy who had returned our money, she became very interested. She asked for your full name and discovered you were the grandson she had been looking for years. Caleb was stunned. You mean you knew my grandmother? We knew her and liked her very much. She was a lovely lady. She always asked about you when she met us at the beach. And you never told me? She asked us not to. She wanted to be sure you would accept the inheritance on your own merit, not because of our influence. Sarah looked at James with gratitude. Dr. James, thank you for speaking well of my son to her. Mrs. Sarah, I only spoke the truth. Caleb truly did something extraordinary. The lawyer took the house keys and handed them to Caleb. Well, young Caleb, this is officially your property now. Whenever you want to visit it, just let me know. I can accompany you on the first day to show you everything. Can we go on Saturday? Caleb asked eagerly. Of course. I'll have my driver take you, James offered. And we're coming too, Madison said. I want to see Grandma Martha's house. You called her Grandma? Of course, she was like a grandmother to us too. She always looked after us when we were little and we went to the beach. Caleb smiled. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. His grandmother, whom he had never met, had been part of the lives of the people who were now his family. It was as if everything had been connected from the beginning. On Saturday, the whole group went to see the beach house. It was a charming property with a view of the sea, a well-kept garden, and 3 bedrooms. On the wall of the main living room were several photos of Caleb at different ages, which Martha had obtained through acquaintances in the community. Look at this, Mom, Caleb called Sarah over to see the photos. She really watched me grow up. It's incredible, Sarah murmured. She knew you better than I imagined. On the dresser in the master bedroom, they found an envelope addressed to Caleb, with instructions to be opened only after he had visited the house. Caleb opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. My dear grandson Caleb, if you are reading this letter, it means you have finally seen your inheritance. I apologize for not having met you in person, but I respected your mother's decision and never wanted to cause trouble for you. I want you to know that I followed your life from afar and am immensely proud of the man you're becoming. When I heard the story of how you honestly returned a large sum of money, I knew you had the character I always hoped you would have. This house is yours now. Use it as you wish. But my wish is for it to be a place of happiness, where you can create good memories with the people you love. The money I left is to ensure you never lack for basic needs. But remember, true wealth lies in relationships and the peace of mind that comes from always doing the right thing. Your mother Sarah is a wonderful woman. She raised you with love and the right values, even through so many hardships. I hope the money I left for her is a way of thanking her for being both father and mother to you. Take care, be happy, and always remember, honesty is worth more than any fortune. With all my love, your grandmother Martha. Caleb finished reading with tears in his eyes. He passed the letter to his mother, who was also moved when she read it. She was truly special, Sarah said. She really was, James agreed, and you can be sure she is very proud of both of you. Madison explored the whole house and came back excited. Caleb, the room facing the sea would be perfect for you to study in, and the kitchen is beautiful. Your mum will love cooking here. And there's a big backyard where we can have barbecues on weekends, Robert added. Do you think we should move here? Caleb asked. Not necessarily, Cynthia answered. How about using this house on weekends and holidays? You can keep your life in the city during the week and come here to rest. Good idea, Sarah agreed. That way we don't lose our friends and our routine, but we gain this wonderful refuge. And we can come visit you always, Madison said excitedly. Actually, James interjected, how about we make this house a family meeting point? Every weekend, whoever wants can come. It will be like a collective summer house. I would love that, Caleb answered. That way I can enjoy the house and still stay close to you. In the following months, the beach house became exactly that, a meeting point where everyone gathered to relax and strengthen family bonds. Caleb continued studying at the private school in the city during the week, going to the beach on weekends. Sarah kept her job at the Harrison house, but now with the additional financial security the inheritance provided. The story of Caleb's honesty spread through the region, and he began to be invited to speak at schools about the importance of doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. He always ended his talks with the same message. Honesty isn't just about returning what isn't yours. It's about being true to yourself and to others in every situation in life. 1 year after the day he found the car in the forest, Caleb organized a special party at the beach house. He invited everyone who had been part of his journey, the entire Harrison family, some classmates from his new school, neighbors from the old community, and even the group of people experiencing homelessness who had initially kept the money. "Why are you throwing this party, Caleb?" Madison asked while helping decorate the house. "Because I want to thank everyone who taught me something this year, and I want to celebrate how our family has grown." "Our family has grown?" "Of course. A year ago, it was just me and my mom. Now look around. We have you, Dr. James, Mrs. Cynthia, Dr. Robert. Even Grandma Martha, whom I've never met in person, is part of our family. You're right. We are a chosen family, not just by blood." During the party, James made a toast. "Caleb, a year ago you made a decision that changed all our lives. You chose to do the right thing even when it would have been very easy to do wrong. That choice not only brought honesty to our family, but it also brought you and your mother into our lives. Thank you, Dr. James, but I have to thank you for giving me opportunities I never dreamed of having." "No, Caleb," Robert interjected. "You earned the opportunities with your character. We just recognized the value you already had." As the party continued, Caleb reflected on how his life had changed. Not just materially, but in terms of perspectives, opportunities, and most importantly, family. He had learned that doing the right thing wasn't just about following rules, but about building relationships based on trust and mutual respect. Later that night, when everyone had left except the Harrison family, Caleb went up to the house's terrace to look at the stars. Madison joined him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I'm thinking about how funny fate is. If I hadn't decided to go gather firewood on that specific day, none of this would have happened. Or if you had taken another path in the forest. Or if I had decided to keep the money. But you didn't, and that makes all the difference. You know what amazes me the most?" "What?" "It's that everyone always tells me I was brave or special for returning the money. But to me, keeping the money would have been the strange thing. I can't imagine how I would feel if I had kept it. Why? Because every time I looked at my mother or bought something with that money, I would know it wasn't truly ours. I'd live in fear of someone finding out with guilt without peace. For me, returning it was the most natural thing in the world." Madison smiled. "Do you know what that means?" "What?" "That you are truly a good person. Not because you force yourself to be, but because kindness and honesty are natural in you. My mother always says everyone is born good, but the world sometimes makes people forget that. Your mother is wise, and you are proof that she's right." They stayed silent for a few minutes, listening to the sound of the waves. "Caleb, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Do you ever regret returning the money?" Caleb thought carefully before answering. "Never, not for a second. Even in the hardest moments this year, when we were still struggling, I never thought I could have kept the money, because I knew that having done the right thing was worth more than any amount." "And now, seeing everything that happened afterward?" "Now I'm sure it was the best decision of my life, not because of the results, but because of the process. I met you all. I learned so much about family, about business, about life. I gained opportunities I wouldn't have had if I had taken the money and kept hiding." "How so?" "Because if I had taken the money, I would have solved our immediate problems, but I would have lost this family. You would have never met me. My mother would have never gotten this job she loves. I would have never studied at a good school. I would have never known Grandma Martha through your stories. And you would have never inherited the house." "Exactly. I would have traded temporary wealth for permanent wealth." "What permanent wealth?" "The wealth of being able to look in the mirror every morning and like the person I see. The wealth of having a family that loves and trusts me. The wealth of knowing I can face any difficult situation because I have solid principles." Madison was moved. "Caleb, At 14, you understand things that many adults never grasp. I think it's because I lived through difficult situations early on. When you don't have much materially, you learn to value other things. And now that you have more resources, now I know that resources are tools. They can be used to do good or to do harm. They can bring people together or push them apart. The difference lies in the character of the person using them. Have your plans for the future changed? They have and they haven't at the same time. How so? My goals remain the same: study well, take care of my mother, build an honest life. But now I have more resources to achieve those goals, and I have a larger family to include in my plans. What plans are those? I want to finish high school with excellent grades, go to college for business administration as I already thought, and then work with you all at the firm. But I also want to keep giving talks about honesty in schools. I think it's important to show other young people that doing the right thing is worth it. And the beach house? I want it to keep being our family meeting point, a place where we can get together, relax, and remember what really matters in life. Which is family, honesty, and the peace that comes from knowing we always do our best to do the right thing. 2 years had passed since that day in the forest. Caleb, now 16, had become an even more mature and balanced young man. He continued living in town with his mother during the week, going to the beach house on weekends with the Harrison family, whom he already considered his family at heart. His grades at school were excellent, and he had already received invitations from several universities interested in offering scholarships. But Caleb had not lost his humble essence and his concern for others. During a talk he was giving at a public school about honesty, a girl of about 12 raised her hand to ask a question. Caleb, it's easy to talk about doing the right thing when you ended up being rewarded for it. But what if you hadn't gained anything? What if you had returned the money and stayed poor? The question caught Caleb by surprise. It was a deep and important question. Great question, he replied. Can I tell you all something I've never told in public? The whole room leaned forward, curious. 3 months after I returned the money, before all these good things started happening, my mother got sick. She needed an expensive medicine we couldn't afford. I stayed awake all night thinking about that money I had seen in the forest. The room fell into absolute silence. I thought, if I had taken just a little of that money, I could buy the medicine for my mother now. It was the only time I thought about regretting my decision. And then? The girl asked. Then I remembered something my mother always told me. Son, if you do the wrong thing to solve a problem, you don't solve the problem. You just trade one problem for a bigger one. How so? If I had taken the money at that moment, I would have solved the immediate problem of the medicine, but I would have created a much bigger problem. I would have lost my own self-respect, my peace of mind. And worse, if my mother found out where the money came from, she would be disappointed in me. The medicine would heal her body, but it would hurt her soul. And what did you do? We talked to our neighbors, explained the situation, and they came together to raise the money for the medicine. It took a week, but we managed. And do you know what the result was? What? My mother got better, our community grew stronger, and I learned that there is always an honest way to solve problems, even if it's slower or more difficult. A teacher who was watching the talk spoke up. Caleb, but don't you think it was luck? What if you hadn't gotten the money for the medicine? Teacher, if we hadn't managed, we would have looked for other alternatives. We could have asked the health clinic for help, looked for a social organization, tried to negotiate with the pharmacy. There are always honest alternatives, even if they aren't obvious at first. But what if there were no alternatives? Then I would rather face the consequences with a clear conscience than have to live with the guilt of having done something wrong. Because in the end, we all have to live with ourselves every day. If I can't respect myself, how will I be able to respect others? How will I be able to build relationships based on trust? The girl who had asked the initial question raised her hand again. But Caleb, don't you think it's easy to think that way because you never really went through much hardship? Caleb smiled sadly. Actually, I did. Before all this happened, my mother and I sometimes went without food to pay the rent. There were nights we went to bed with only water in our stomachs because we didn't even have money to buy bread. The room was impressed. It was precisely because I went through hardship that I understood the importance of doing the right thing. Because when you have nothing material, your integrity is the only treasure you truly possess. If you lose that, you lose everything for real. How so? Because poverty is a temporary situation. With effort, study, work, sometimes with luck, you can leave poverty. But dishonesty is a choice that marks your character forever. Once you break your own principles, it becomes easier to break them again. And then you lose the most important thing there is: respect for yourself. A boy at the back of the room shouted, "But you were rewarded for being honest. That proves it's worth it." "No," Caleb answered firmly. "I wasn't rewarded for being honest. I was lucky that good people came into my life after I demonstrated I had character. Those are different things." "How are they different?" "Because honesty is worth it even when you're not rewarded for it. The value of honesty isn't in what you gain from it, but in the kind of person you become when you practice it." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. After the talk, Caleb went home thoughtful. That conversation with the students had made him reflect on aspects of his story he had never deeply considered before. When he got home, he found his mother preparing dinner in the kitchen. Sarah had changed a lot in the last 2 years. She was more confident, more cheerful, and the financial security had removed that constant expression of worry she used to carry. "How was the talk today, son?" "Interesting, Mom. The students asked questions that made me think." "What kind of questions?" "About whether I would really do the same thing if I knew I wouldn't be rewarded for it." Sarah stopped cooking and looked at her son. "And what did you answer?" "That yes, I would. But I kept thinking if that's really true, or if it's easy to say that now that everything worked out." "Caleb, can I tell you something I never told you?" "Of course, Mom." "The day after you returned the money, I was very afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that you would regret it. Afraid you would start to blame me for teaching you to be honest in a situation where dishonesty would have solved all our problems." "Mom, let me finish. For weeks I watched you, looking for signs of regret, and you know what I saw." "What?" "I saw you calmer and happier than you had been in months. Even with our difficulties continuing, you were at peace. That's when I was sure I had raised you right." "How did you know I was happy?" "Because you started singing in the morning again while getting ready for school. You hadn't done that in months, and you started talking about the future again, making plans. Before returning the money, you only talked about the problems of the present." Caleb was surprised. "I didn't even notice that." "You did notice, just unconsciously. Your body, your mind, your soul knew you had done the right thing, and it brought you an inner peace that you yourself didn't notice, but that was visible to those who loved you. Do you think I would do the same thing today?" "I'm sure of it, because it wasn't a decision you made thinking about the consequences. It was a decision that sprang from your character, and character doesn't change with circumstances." That night, Caleb lay in bed thinking about the conversation with his mother. She was right. He really had felt different after returning the money. It wasn't just relief from doing the right thing, but a deep feeling of being aligned with himself. A few days later, an unexpected situation would test Caleb's character again. During a weekend at the beach house, Caleb was walking alone on the sand when he saw a well-dressed man drop a wallet without noticing. Caleb ran after him to warn him, but the man had already gotten into a car and driven away. Caleb picked up the wallet and went to the house to decide what to do. When he opened it to look for identification, he was shocked. There was almost $10,000 in cash, along with credit cards and documents. James was reading on the terrace when Caleb approached. "Dr. James, I need your help." "What happened?" Caleb told him about the wallet and showed him the documentation. "The name is Victor Sterling. He has an address here in town." "I know this man," James said. "He owns a chain of restaurants." "But Caleb, why did you come to ask for my help? You know exactly what to do in a situation like this." "I know, but there's a complication." "What complication?" This man is suing my school because of an accident that happened to his son during a field trip. The lawsuit could make the school close. Many of my friends won't have a place to study if that happens. James understood the dilemma immediately. And you're wondering if you should return the wallet to someone who is harming people you care about? Exactly. I know it's wrong to think that way, but you're human, and it's natural to have conflicting feelings in a situation like this. What would you do? Caleb, you already know what you should do. The question isn't what I would do, but how you'll handle your feelings about your decision. How so? You will return the wallet because it's the right thing to do, that I'm sure of, but maybe it's an opportunity to talk to this man about the lawsuit against the school. Talk how? Honestly, tell him about the school, about how important it is for you and your classmates. Sometimes people sue institutions without thinking about the human impact of their actions. Caleb thought about the suggestion. But what if he thinks I'm trying to blackmail him, like, I'll return your wallet if you drop the lawsuit? That's why you need to make it very clear that these are two separate things. First, you return the wallet because it's his. Then, if he's willing to talk, you speak about the school as a person concerned about your educational community. And if he refuses to talk or continues with the lawsuit, then at least you will have tried, and you will have done the right thing by returning what is his, regardless of what he decides to do. An hour later, Caleb was at the door of Victor Sterling's house. It was a large, well-decorated house on one of the best streets in Myrtle Beach. Victor answered the door himself, and Caleb immediately noticed the man was worried. "Good afternoon, Mr. Victor. My name is Caleb Miller. I found your wallet on the beach." Victor's face transformed into pure relief. "Thank God. I was desperate looking for it. Where was it?" "In the sand, near the main entrance to the beach. You must have dropped it when you got out of the car." "My God, I didn't even realize I had lost it. Is everything in there?" "Yes, sir. I didn't take anything out." Victor quickly checked the contents of the wallet and was impressed to see everything was intact. "Son, you have no idea the favor you've done me. This money was to pay my restaurant employees tomorrow. If I had lost this..." "I'm glad I could help, sir. Come in, come in. I want to thank you properly." Caleb followed Victor into the living room. "Would you like something to drink?" "Please don't trouble yourself, sir. I just came to return it." "It's no trouble. It's the least I can do, and let me pay you a reward." "I don't need a reward, Mr. Victor. I just did what any decent person would do." Victor was impressed by the answer. "How old are you?" 16. 16 years old and more mature than many adults I know. What was your name again?" "Caleb Miller." "Caleb Miller? That name sounds familiar to me." "It's possible, sir. I go to Jefferson Public School." Victor's face changed immediately. His expression closed off and he became more formal. "Ah, you go to the school I'm suing?" "Yes, sir." An awkward silence settled between them. "And you knew this when you decided to return my wallet?" "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because the wallet is yours, regardless of anything else." Victor studied Caleb's face for a few seconds. "Boy, you're either very naive or very clever." "What do you mean?" "If you're naive, then you truly believe returning the wallet was the right thing to do regardless of the circumstances. If you're clever, then you're trying to influence me to drop the lawsuit." Caleb took a deep breath. This was the moment for the conversation James had suggested. "Mr. Victor, can I be honest with you?" "Of course." "I came here to return your wallet because it's yours. That has nothing to do with the lawsuit. But now that you've brought it up, can I ask to talk about the school?" "Go ahead. I know you have reasons to be angry with the school because of your son's accident. I won't say you're wrong because I don't know all the details, but can I tell you what that school means to me and to hundreds of other students?" Victor leaned back in his chair. "I'm listening." "That school is the only place where many young people from my community can study for free and have access to a quality education. If it closes, dozens of families won't be able to afford private school for their children." "And what does that have to do with me?" "Nothing, sir. You have no obligation to worry about that. But I thought perhaps you weren't aware of the impact the lawsuit could have." "You think I haven't thought of that?" "I don't know, sir. That's why I'm talking to you, to better understand the situation." Victor was silent for a few minutes. "Caleb, can I tell you what happened to my son?" Of course. He went on a school field trip to a farm. There was a warning about a hole on the property that was being used for composting. My son fell into this hole and broke his leg in 3 places. He had to have 2 surgeries and couldn't walk for 3 months. I'm very sorry, sir. The problem isn't just the accident. It's that the school didn't take proper precautions. They didn't fence off the dangerous area, didn't put someone to watch it, didn't properly instruct the students about the risks. Caleb listened attentively. And after the accident, Victor continued, the school didn't take responsibility. They said it was an unforeseen accident and that they weren't at fault. I understand why you're suing then. My goal isn't to close the school, Caleb. It's to make them take responsibility and implement measures to prevent other students from getting hurt. But if the lawsuit demands too much, the school might have to close. And that worries me too. That's why I offered a settlement. I want the school to pay my son's medical costs, implement stricter safety protocols for field trips, and make a public apology admitting the mistake. And the school didn't accept. The principal said she can't admit fault because it would set a precedent for other lawsuits. She preferred to pay for lawyers and fight it in court. Caleb was surprised. This version of the story was different from what he'd heard at school. Mr. Victor, can I ask a question? Go ahead. If the school accepts your conditions, will you drop the lawsuit? Immediately. And have you tried talking directly to the students' parents about this? No. Why? Because maybe they can pressure the principal to accept the settlement. If the parents understand that you don't want to close the school, you just want safety and responsibility, maybe they'll support your position. Victor became thoughtful. That makes sense. But how do we organize a conversation like that? If you want, I can help. I can talk to other students, ask them to talk to their parents, explain the real situation. Maybe we can organize a meeting. Why would you do that? If I get what I want, your school will have to pay a large sum. Because I'd rather the school pay and learn to be more responsible than have it close and leave all of us without an education. And you trust that I'll keep my word about dropping the lawsuit if my conditions are accepted? Have you given me any reason not to trust you? Victor smiled for the first time since discovering that Caleb attended the school he was suing. You're a very interesting young man, Caleb. How did you learn to think like this? I think I learned that most problems can be solved with honest conversation, sir. And that usually when people fight, it's because they aren't understanding each other correctly. And you think that's what's happening between me and the school? I think so. You want safety and accountability. The school wants to keep operating. They don't have to be conflicting goals. You're right. How about we schedule this meeting for next week? You would really agree to that? Of course. And Caleb? Yes? Thank you for returning my wallet. And thank you for helping me see this situation from a different angle. The following week, the meeting took place at the school itself. Victor attended and explained his side of the story to an auditorium full of parents, students, and teachers. Many people were surprised to learn that he didn't want to close the school. The principal, pressured by the parents themselves, finally agreed to accept Victor's conditions. The school paid the medical costs, implemented new safety protocols, and issued a public apology. Victor dropped the lawsuit as he had promised, but the story didn't end there. Impressed by Caleb's maturity and mediation skills, Victor invited him to work part-time at one of his restaurants as a way to learn about management hands-on. Caleb, you have a natural talent for resolving conflicts, Victor said during the first week of work. Have you ever thought about a career in mediation or law? No, sir. I still want to study business administration to work at the Harrison family firm, but I really enjoy helping people understand each other. Who says you can't do both? Be an administrator and a mediator? How so? Many companies need people who can manage internal conflicts, negotiate with suppliers, mediate disputes. Your skills would be very valuable in the business world. Caleb became thoughtful. It was a perspective he had never considered. That night, he talked about it with James at the beach house. Dr. James, do you think I could work at your firm and also do mediations elsewhere? Of course, Caleb. In fact, it would be great for our company to have someone with your skills. Sometimes we have conflicts with suppliers, employees, even between the partners themselves, James smiled. remembering his own fight with his brother. Would it be like extra work? Or it could be your specialty within the company. You could be our manager of relations and resolutions. You would handle all aspects of the business that involve people and conflicts. That's a real thing. It is, and it's increasingly valued. Companies are realizing that having someone skilled at handling human issues is as important as having someone skilled at handling numbers. And would I need to study something specific for it? Besides business administration, it would be good to take courses in mediation, organizational psychology, maybe even business law. But your practical experience is already very valuable. Caleb got excited about the idea. It was a way to unite his desire to work with the Harrison family with his natural talent for resolving conflicts. 3 months later, Caleb was mediating his first official dispute within the Harrison & Harrison firm. 2 departments were fighting over the deadlines for a project, and the argument was hindering the progress of the work. Caleb organized a meeting with the heads of the 2 departments and applied the same strategy he had used with Victor and the school. Listen to all sides, identify common goals, and help the parties find solutions that benefited everyone. The issue isn't who's right or wrong, he said during the meeting. The issue is how we can deliver the project on time without overloading either department. After 2 hours of discussion, the department heads reached an agreement on redistributing tasks and setting realistic deadlines for each project stage. Caleb, Robert commented after the meeting, in 2 hours you solved a problem that had been hindering our work for 2 weeks. It's just that sometimes people get so focused on defending their positions that they forget to look for solutions, Dr. Robert. And how did you learn that? By observing. When I lived alone with my mother, we saw a lot of conflicts in the community. I noticed the longest fights were between people who wanted the same thing but couldn't talk properly. For example, 2 of our neighbors fought for months because one wanted to plant flowers in the yard and the other wanted to plant vegetables. They made so much noise arguing that no one could rest, until my mother suggested each plant in one half of the yard. Problem solved. That simple? That simple. But they were so angry at each other, they couldn't see obvious solutions. And you think this happens in companies too? It happens everywhere there are people, Dr. Robert. People sometimes complicate things because they're emotionally involved. 6 more months passed. Caleb had mediated dozens of small conflicts in the company, and his reputation began to spread. Other firms in the region started contacting the Harrisons, asking to borrow Caleb to resolve disputes. One Friday afternoon, James called Caleb in for an important talk. "Caleb, I need to discuss something serious with you." "What is it, Dr. James?" "You're 17 years old and already being sought after by half the region to resolve business conflicts. That makes me proud, but also worried." "Why?" "Because you're still a minor, you're still finishing high school, and you're already taking on adult responsibilities. I don't want you to lose your youth." Caleb became thoughtful. "Dr. James, can I be honest with you?" "Always. I feel more fulfilled doing these mediations than anything else I've ever done in my life. It's as if I was born for it." "But you don't feel like you're missing out on being a teenager?" "No, sir, I much prefer being here helping people solve problems than being at a party or playing video games." "Are you sure?" "I am." "Dr. James, can I make a confession?" "Of course." "Since I was little, I felt different from other boys my age. They worried about games, and I worried about how to help my mother pay the bills. They fought over silly things, and I kept thinking about how to make everyone understand each other." "And did that bother you?" "Sometimes. I felt alone, as if I wasn't normal. But now I realize it was my vocation showing itself early." "Vocation?" "Yes, Dr. James. I really believe I was born to help people understand each other better, and the more I do it, the happier I am." James smiled. "In that case, how about we formalize your position in the company? Instead of you working as a general helper, we can create a specific role, junior consultant for mediation and relations." "Really? Really? With a matching salary, benefits, and the possibility of serving external clients too if you want? And can I continue studying?" "Of course, in fact, I want to pay for a technical mediation course for you to take on Saturdays. That way you'll get official certification for your natural skills." Caleb was moved. Dr. James, 3 years ago I was a boy gathering firewood in the forest to help my mother cook. How is it possible that today I'm having this conversation? Because you made a choice of character that changed the course of your life, and you kept making the right choices ever since. But I was also lucky to have found you. Caleb, can I tell you a secret? Go ahead. We were also lucky to have found you. You didn't just return our money, you brought honesty, wisdom, and unity to our family. We are better people for knowing you. Thank you, Dr. James, for everything. Thank you, my son, because that's how I see you now, as a son. That night, Caleb called his mother to tell her about the promotion. Mum, can you believe it? I'm going to be a junior mediation and relations consultant. I'm so proud of you, my son, but not surprised. Why not surprised? Because since you were little, you've always been this way. Remember when the boys on the street would fight, and you always managed to get them to understand each other? I remember. Remember when our neighbor was fighting with her husband, and you suggested they make a list of the good things about each other? I remember that too. You've always had this gift, Caleb. The difference is that now you have the opportunity to use it professionally. Mom, sometimes I think about what would have happened if I had taken that money in the forest. And what do you conclude? That it would have solved our immediate problems, but I would have lost my destiny. How so? If I had taken the money, I would never have met the Harrison family. I would never have discovered my calling for mediation. I would never have had the opportunities I have today. I'd just be another young man who used dishonesty to escape poverty. And what's the difference? The difference is that now I know I can achieve anything honestly. I have confidence in myself. I have a family that loves me. I have a purpose in life. All of that came because I made the right choice that day. And do you feel ready for this new responsibility? I do, Mom. And you know why? Why? Because I learned that when we do things with love and honesty, the result is always positive. Maybe not in the way we expect, but always positive. A year had passed since Caleb officially became a junior mediation consultant. His mediations had resolved conflicts in more than 20 companies in the region, and he was finishing high school with excellent grades. During a monthly meeting at the Harrison & Harrison firm, Robert brought up a surprising proposal. Everyone, we've received a very interesting offer. A consulting firm from a state capital wants to hire Caleb as a senior consultant. The salary offered is 3 times what we pay him. Caleb was surprised. How did they hear about my work? Through Victor, from the school case. He talked about you to other business people and the news spread. And do you think I should accept? James and Robert exchanged glances. Caleb, James said, this is a decision you need to make on your own. But we want you to know that, regardless of what you decide, you will always have a home here with us. Literally, Madison added. The beach house is yours forever, remember. I know, but I don't want to abandon you, especially after everything you've done for me. Caleb, Robert interjected, we haven't done anything you don't deserve, and now it's time for you to fly higher. But I like working here, I like being close to you. And we like having you here, Cynthia said, but maybe it's time for you to try bigger challenges. Can I think about it? Of course, but Caleb, can I make a suggestion? Go ahead, Dr. James. How about you talk to this company and propose a different arrangement? Instead of working exclusively for them, you could be an independent consultant. That way, you could keep working with us and with other companies too. Is that possible? Of course. Many professionals work like that nowadays. You'd have more freedom and could serve multiple clients. But I'm only 18. Would companies really trust someone so young? Caleb, Madison laughed, you've already proven your worth. Your age is irrelevant when the results speak for themselves. Caleb decided to follow James's suggestion. He spoke with the company from the capital and proposed working as an independent consultant, serving both them and other clients. To his surprise, the company immediately accepted the proposal. We actually prefer it this way, the director explained during a video conference. We want you focused on solving our most complex problems, not wasting time on routine administrative matters. And what would the work schedule be? 2 weeks a month at our company, 2 weeks free for other clients. Payment would be per resolved project, not by time. How much per project? It depends on the complexity, but between $5,000 and $15,000 per successful mediation. Caleb was speechless. It was more money than he had ever imagined earning. When he told the Harrison family, everyone was thrilled. "Caleb," James said, "you are officially established as a professional at 18. And the best part," Robert added, "is that you can keep working with us too. Don't you think I'm growing up too fast?" "No," Madison replied. "You've always been mature for your age. Now your career is simply catching up to your maturity." That night, Caleb walked alone on the beach, reflecting on his journey. In 4 years, he had gone from extreme poverty to becoming a regionally sought-after consultant. But what impressed him most wasn't the material changes, but the changes in his life perspective. He had learned that honesty wasn't just about not lying or not stealing. It was about being authentic in all relationships, about having the courage to do what's right even when it's difficult, about building a life based on solid principles. He'd also learned that family wasn't just about blood, but about love, commitment, and mutual support. The Harrison family had become as important to him as his own mother, and he had discovered that every person has unique talents, and that happiness comes from using those talents to make a difference in the lives of others. When he returned home that night, he found his mother waiting in the kitchen with a cup of tea. "How was your walk, son?" "Good, Mum. I was thinking about how our life has changed." "And what conclusion did you reach?" "That it all started when I chose to do the right thing, even though it was hard, and that every right choice I've made since then has brought more opportunities to make other right choices." "And do you regret any of those choices?" "Never, Mom. Every decision brought me to where I am today, and I'm exactly where I want to be." "Even knowing your life could have been simpler if you'd made different choices?" "Especially because of that. A simple life isn't necessarily a happy life. I prefer having challenges that make me grow over comforts that make me stagnate." Sarah smiled. "You've grown so much, my son. Sometimes I look at you and can't believe you're the same boy I raised alone in that little house." "I am the same boy, Mom, with more opportunities, more responsibilities, more experience. But inside, I'm still that boy you taught to always do the right thing. And that's what makes me most proud of you, that even with all these changes, your values remain the same. Because they were values you planted deep in my heart. No matter where I go or what I achieve, I'll always remember the lessons I learned in our small kitchen." "What lessons?" "That honesty is worth more than money. That family is the most important treasure. That conversation solves more problems than fighting. That love is shown through actions, not just words. That everyone deserves respect regardless of social standing." "And which lesson do you consider most important?" "That doing the right thing is worth it. Always. Even when it's hard. Even when no one is watching. Even when it seems like it will lead nowhere. In the end, it's always worth it." 2 years later, Caleb had become the most sought-after mediator in the region. His independent consulting firm served clients in 3 states, and he was completing his degree in business administration through a hybrid program that allowed him to continue working. The beach house had officially become the family gathering place. Every weekend, some member of the Harrison family was there, and Caleb made sure to be present whenever possible. During one of these family gatherings, James made a special announcement. "Everyone, I have some news for you." "What is it?" they all asked in unison. "Robert and I have decided to expand Harrison & Harrison. We're opening a new division, Harrison & Harrison Mediations, specializing in business conflict resolution." "And who will run this division?" Madison asked, but everyone already knew the answer. "Our son Caleb, of course," Robert replied. Caleb was moved. Being called son by the Harrisons always touched him deeply. "But I don't have the money to be a partner." "Who said anything about money?" James interrupted. "You'll come in as a partner based on merit. Your experience and reputation are your investment in the firm." "Are you sure about this?" "Caleb," Cynthia said, "you are family, and family takes care of each other. You took care of us when you returned our money and helped us understand each other better. Now it's our turn to take care of your professional future. Besides," Madison added, "you're already making more money with your mediations than many partners in traditional firms. We're not doing charity. We're making a good business deal." Caleb looked around the table, seeing the faces of the people he had learned to love as family. He still remembered perfectly that day in the forest, when he found the car and had to choose between the easy path and the right path. "I accept the offer," he said, "but on one condition." "What is it?" James asked. "That a percentage of the new division's profits be allocated to a fund to help underprivileged youth study. I want to give back to my original community the opportunities I received." "Great idea," Robert approved. "How about 10% of the profits?" "Perfect." That night, Caleb called some of his old public school classmates to tell them about the scholarship fund he was creating. "Seriously, Caleb, you're going to pay for other kids to study? It's not just me, it's the whole company. But yes, we're going to create scholarships for young people who can't afford private school or technical courses." "Why?" "Because someone did that for me when I needed it, and because I believe every young person deserves the opportunity to develop their talents." "And how will people apply for these scholarships? It won't just be about grades, we'll evaluate character too. We want to help honest, dedicated young people who demonstrate solid values." "How will you evaluate that?" "Through interviews, letters of recommendation from teachers and neighbors, community work. We want to find young people who make a difference in their communities, even without resources." "Like you used to do?" "Yes, young people who help their families, who respect others, who have dreams but also a sense of responsibility." 6 months later, the Harrison and Harrison Scholarship Program was up and running. 20 young people from underprivileged communities were studying on full scholarships, and Caleb personally monitored each one's progress. Among the scholarship recipients was a 15-year-old girl named Chloe, who had been recommended for doing volunteer reading work for illiterate seniors in her community. "Caleb," she said during one of the monthly scholarship meetings, "can I ask a personal question?" "Of course, Chloe. Why did you create this program? You already have everything you need." "Because having everything I need gives me the responsibility to help those who don't have it yet. But you're not obligated to do this. I have no legal obligation, but I have a moral obligation to myself." "How so?" "Chloe, can I tell you how it all started for me?" Caleb told the whole story. The day in the forest, the decision to return the money, how he met the Harrison family, all the opportunities that came after. "And you think all that happened because you returned the money?" "Not exactly. I think it happened because I demonstrated character. The money was just the first situation where that was tested. And if you had failed the test, then my life would have taken a completely different path. Maybe I would have even escaped poverty by taking that money, but I would have lost something much more important." "What?" "The ability to respect myself. And without that, no material achievement is worthwhile." Chloe became thoughtful. "Caleb, can I tell you why I volunteer with the seniors?" "Of course." "Because my grandfather died not knowing how to read. He was always ashamed of it and felt inferior to other people. When I see seniors in the same situation, I remember him and want to help." "That's beautiful, Chloe. But sometimes people think I'm wasting my time. They say I should use that time to study more and try to get a scholarship." "And what do you answer?" "That if I only think of myself, I'll become a selfish person, and a selfish person doesn't deserve a scholarship." Caleb smiled. "Chloe, you've perfectly understood the point. Character isn't about following rules when it's convenient. It's about doing what's right even when it costs you something. And it always costs something, right? Always. But what you lose in immediate convenience, you gain in peace of mind and self-respect." "Caleb, can I ask one more question?" "As many as you want." "Have you ever felt like doing something dishonest after you became rich?" The question took Caleb by surprise. "Honestly?" "Yes." "Really?" "Really. Last month, a client offered me double my usual fee if I mediated a dispute in a biased way, favoring his position." "And what did you do?" "I refused, of course. But I confess that for a few minutes I was tempted. It was a lot of money." "What made you refuse?" "I remembered how I felt the day I returned the money in the forest. I remembered the peace I had after doing the right thing, and I realized that no amount of money would be worth more than that peace." "And you didn't regret it?" "On the contrary. A week later, Another client sought me out precisely because he heard I had refused the dishonest offer. He said he needed someone he could trust completely. And did he pay more than the first client? He paid triple. Because trust has immeasurable value in the business world, Chloe laughed. So doing the right thing is good business too. It's always good business. Maybe not immediately, but always in the long run. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought and from where you are watching us. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Caleb made the right decision? We would love to read your opinion.